It was the spring of my high school graduation in a small, forgettable town in Ohio. Under the glaring fluorescent lights of our school gymnasium, packed with families decked out in red and white, where the air smelled of cheap polyester and ambition, and my mother, Linda, stood up during the informal pre-ceremony potluck, her voice cutting through the chatter of our neighbors and relatives like a cold knife, saying, "Look at her. Just look, she has no direction, no spark." While her cousin Heather is already accepted into pre-med, and everyone turned, their paper plates laden with potato salad hovering in mid-air, their eyes wide with a mix of pity and morbid curiosity, as my mother, the woman who gave me life, continued, her words deliberate and loud. "This one, my Emily. She'll never amount to anything real. She'll never wear a uniform that commands respect in this country. Not like the soldiers or the officers you see. She'll probably end up serving coffee in a diner somewhere, if she's lucky." And the heat of 1,000 suns rushed to my face, my own blue graduation gown suddenly feeling like a costume of shame. My vision blurring with tears, I refused to let fall as my younger brother looked at his shoes, and my father sipped his punch silently. The ultimate betrayal in their inaction. And in that moment, surrounded by the entire tapestry of my childhood, the cheerleaders, the football players, the teachers who never quite saw me, the aunts who always whispered, I felt my heart crumble into dust. A public dissection of every dream I'd ever whispered into my pillow at night, every quiet hope of being someone in America, of making a mark, of being more than just a name on a forgotten trophy. And as the muffled laughter and sympathetic murmurs swirled around me, I made a silent vow, a pact with myself that required no dramatic exit, no slammed doors, just a profound and aching decision that this town, this family, this version of myself, was finished. And I would leave and never look back, not to prove them wrong, but because the girl they were laughing at had just died in that gymnasium. And someone else had to be born from the ashes of her humiliation. The very next morning, with the dawn light painting my cramped bedroom in sad oranges, I packed a single duffel bag with the bare essentials, a few worn-out jeans, some t-shirts, my saved-up waitressing tips of 327 carefully folded into a sock, and a photograph of my grandparents, the only people who ever called me special. And I boarded a Greyhound bus headed south, the engines growl a soundtrack to my numbness, watching the familiar fields of Ohio give way to the anonymous highways of Kentucky, then Tennessee, my tears falling silently now, not for the loss, but for the terrifying void of the future. Arriving days later in Atlanta, Georgia, a city that pulsed with a heat and noise that felt alien, where I rented a cot in a hostel shared with 5 other transient souls, and began the slow, grinding crawl of survival, taking a job as a night shift cleaner in a sprawling office complex downtown, mopping endless linoleum floors under the sterile glow of corporate hallways, the smell of bleach and loneliness my constant companions. Then working a second shift at a 24-hour diner off Peachtree Street, serving greasy eggs and weak coffee to truckers and insomniacs. My feet aching, my spirit hollow, counting pennies for a carton of milk and a loaf of bread, some weeks living on nothing but the leftover toast from the diner's kitchen, sleeping in fitful bursts on a friend's couch, the kind of profound tiredness that seeps into your bones, the kind of hunger that is a quiet, constant hum. All while the voice of my mother played on a loop in my head. You'll never amount to anything. A toxic mantra I fought with every wary step, crying silent tears into my pillow, in the few hours of dark I called my own. Feeling the weight of America's immense indifference. A country of strivers where I was barely a ghost. Until one rain-soaked evening, slipping on the wet diner floor, and dropping a full tray of dishes, the shatter echoing like my own breaking point, The manager's scornful look the final straw. I walked out into the Atlanta downpour, soaked to the skin, and screamed into the thunder. A raw, guttural sound that was not defeat, but a declaration of war. A promise that this would not be my life. That I would find a way to wear a uniform that meant something. That I would build a foundation of respect brick by brick, with my own blistered hands. The next day, trembling but resolute, I walked into a U.S. Army recruiting office, not out of some sudden patriotic fervor, but because it was a structured path, a clear ladder out of the abyss, a chance to belong to something bigger than my own shame, and after passing the entrance exams, I was shipped off to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where the drill sergeant's screams were almost a relief after the silent disapproval of my family. A tangible enemy I could fight, where I learned to march, to shoot, to endure. Pushing my body beyond limits I never knew I had, finding a strange solace in the discipline. The crispness of the routine, the way my initial uniform, however coarse, represented a pure meritocracy my home never offered. My tears now mixed with sweat and driven by a different fire. Graduating not at the top, but with a quiet, steely determination that caught the eye of a tactical instructor who suggested I consider intelligence, a field where patience and quiet observation were valued over brute force. And so I applied myself with a ferocious focus, using my GI Bill benefits to enroll in online courses in cybersecurity and strategic analysis through a university in Texas. Studying by flashlight after long days of duty, my brain aching from the strain of new concepts, slowly ascending the ranks from private to specialist. My world expanding from the base to deployments that took me to desks in Germany and South Korea, analyzing data, protecting networks, becoming a silent, unseen guardian in the digital shadows of America's defense, earning respect through competence, not charisma, saving every dollar, investing wisely, building a credit score, and a small savings account that felt like a fortress, my identity slowly morphing from Emily the disappointment to Davis, the reliable analyst, a last name I clung to as my true self, the girl from Ohio buried under layers of resilience and purpose. Years bled into each other, a tapestry of hard work and silent growth, as I transitioned out of active duty, and through a combination of skill, clearance, and a well-timed recommendation, secured a position as a civilian intelligence officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency, stationed finally in Washington, D.C., a city of power and marble, where I now wore a different uniform, the sharp, tailored suit of a federal officer, a badge clipped to my belt, my hair pulled back in a severe but professional bun, my posture straight with a confidence earned in shadows and silence, my authority quiet but absolute in the secure, windowless rooms where I helped safeguard the nation, buying a small, elegant condo in Arlington with a view of the Potomac, a far cry from the diner floor, living a life of disciplined solitude, my revenge not a plot but a living fact, my existence itself a rebuttal to every cruel word, until the day an inter-agency liaison conference brought me to a federal building in Cleveland, a mere 2-hour drive from the town I'd fled, and a deep, unshakable pull, a need for a final, silent testament, guided my government setting off the highway and into the familiar, tree-lined streets that hadn't changed, past the old diner, the football field, and finally, to the driveway of the modest suburban house I once called home, where I saw her, Linda, my mother, through the kitchen window, older, grayer, watering a fern, her face etched with the same quiet dissatisfaction, and I stepped out of the car, not in anger, but in the full, silent power of my achieved self, my polished shoes crunching on the gravel, my federal ID and badge visible on my hip, my expression calm, unreadable, a monument to patience. And as she turned, a dish towel in her hand, her eyes traveled from my face, down my official suit, to the badge that glittered in the afternoon sun, a symbol of service and respect in the America she said I'd never conquer, and her face, that face that once contorted in public disdain, underwent a seismic collapse, the dish towel falling to the ground, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes widening in a shock so profound it was almost slow motion, filling instantly with a flood of tears, not of joy, but of a dawning, horrifying realization, a comprehension of the magnitude of her error and the silent, dignified mountain I had become. And she stumbled back against the door frame, a small, broken sound escaping her lips, not my name. Just a gasp of utter defeat as I stood there, not saying a word, allowing the evidence of my life, my uniform, my presence, to speak the volumes she could never hear, before giving a slight, almost imperceptible nod, a closure offered from a peak she could never climb, and turning back to my car, driving away from the past forever, my heart finally, fully at peace, because the greatest revenge is not a shout, but a quiet life lived so well that your very presence becomes an unanswerable question. A testament to the American truth that strength is often forged in the fires of silence, and the most powerful uniform you will ever wear is the unshakable dignity of your own earned self-respect.